Philip J. Pierre says if government decides to cut back on flour subsidies, it will have varying impacts on the different income groups. However, he says low-income earners will be affected most. Pierre says a cutback in flour subsidies will result in higher bread prices, which will place an extra burden on consumers.
So when you remove subsidies on these goods, you are impacting negatively on the lower income earner much more than the high income earner. And that's the crux of the matter. So if government removes subsidies on flour, the price of bread will go up. What will happen is that consumers, low-income consumers, will then have to spend more money to buy bread, and they will spend less money on other goods that may help their nutrition and that may also help the business cycle. So I think it is very short-sighted.
Consumer Affairs Minister Rufus Bousquet says the realignment of flour and other subsidies will ensure that there is revenue to fuel economic growth in other sectors. But Pierre says the UWP government should reduce on other subsidies which benefit high-income earners and keep the subsidies on flour.
There are other subsidies that impact positively on higher income people. These subsidies, of course, you must change them if they exist. But flour would directly affect the low income groups. What the government needs to do is to grow the economy. The economy needs to grow.
Pierre says he's also concerned about government's plans to introduce food stamps to help cushion the high prices consumers pay for commodities. The former Consumer Affairs Minister says government has to create an environment for people to earn income rather than investing in food stamps. He says research has shown that food stamps don't serve the purpose for which they are intended.
First of all, there is a whole administrative setup as it relates to food stamps. Then there is a possibility of things not going right. You can administer food stamps to people who you have already in terms of people who are being paid government subventions. Now, further, instead of then there's also the problem with how you allocate these food stamps. Are they going to be a thing that you use for political patronage?
Pierre insists that food stamps will not solve the problems people face for high food prices. The former Consumer Affairs Minister says if he was still minister, he would not remove flour subsidies despite the global food crisis. He says it's folly if government removes flour subsidies ahead of an advertised increase in the price of government-controlled baked goods. Shannon Labon, HDS News, Channel 4.